Hey all, Mike back here with another Stock Strategy Explained, and today we're going to be taking a look at Bitcoin, seeing if you should invest your hard-earned money into Bitcoin, and seeing why it has rocket shipped past $32,000 in the last couple of days. Make sure you give this video a thumbs up if you like rocket ships and if you want Bitcoin to rocket ship to the moon, because who doesn't like a good rocket ship? And make sure you subscribe for more future updates on stock analysis, stock ideas, and IPOs. And just a quick disclaimer, this is not legal, tax, financial, or investment advice. Make sure you do your own research before you do any sort of investment. And with that, let's get right into Bitcoin and see if this is worth an investment from you. So first up, let's dive into the numbers a little bit. Right now, Bitcoin is worth over $32,000 per coin, and it's only rising up. So who knows what it's gonna be in a day or even a week from now. And for a little bit of context, it's grown over 60% in the last month. And in the last 3 months, it's grown over 200%. So as you can see right now, it's just on a rocket ship trajectory. There's a lot of exponential growth right now in Bitcoin's price. And looking at Bitcoin's market cap, it's worth over $600 billion. So if you combine all of the Bitcoins together, multiply them by 32,000, they're worth over $600 billion, which is a lot. For comparison, that's worth about the same as Tesla. It's bigger than Visa as a company. It's bigger than Walmart even as a company. And it's over double Portugal, which is a decent sized European country. It's over double Portugal's GDP, which is insane. And in my opinion, there's no way to sugarcoat this right now. Bitcoin is a speculative investment. It could actually be worth a lot in 10 years from now. It could also be worth $0 10 years from now. And we'll dive into why and some of the merits that Bitcoin actually does have. And make sure you stay till the end to see my final recommendation on Bitcoin and if you should buy and how I'm even playing this Bitcoin craze right now. So let's actually take a pause here and take a look at a lesson from Business 101. So stocks have value because the underlying business behind them actually are good businesses and generate money. And items and commodities have value because the actual underlying commodity or item has value. So for example, Visa generates money and provides value to businesses to help them transact faster, which is why Visa stock has value. And an item like gold has value because, let's face it, who doesn't like to flex? I think the value of gold is you can wear a nice gold chain and say, hey, look at me, I'm hella rich, right? But gold does have value because it helps you flex, it helps you show your wealth. And that is a valid use case of gold. And people find gold valuable because they want to buy it and show off their wealth. So the TLDR is the underlying assets or the underlying commodities or items have value, which is why people want to buy these items and why these items have value. And so now looking at Bitcoin, there's actually a lot of people saying, Bitcoin doesn't really have any underlying value. It doesn't really have any core use case. And while for the most part I do agree, there actually is two big use cases that I think a lot of people are overlooking. The two big use cases are black market transactions and gambling. If you haven't noticed, Bitcoin is mainly used in places like the Silk Road, which is now shut down, but it's used for black market transactions. So I could buy, let's say, some drugs online, and I can use Bitcoin instead of cash or my credit card, which is traceable. I can use Bitcoin to actually transact online a lot easier. The second big one is gambling. So you've probably seen there's actually a lot of gambling sites out there right now that really allow you to bet Bitcoin instead of adding your credit card or instead of adding your bank account. And it just makes it a lot easier and actually lowers the risk for a lot of these online gambling sites. And it just makes it easy to transact rather than using a credit card, which you might not want to use. So gambling is actually a huge use case of Bitcoin. So I actually think a lot of people are overlooking these two use cases, which people don't love to talk about. They're not very savory, but people with Bitcoin do actually use them for this. So then I think the question becomes, will Bitcoin provide value to the average person? So you can imagine I'm not buying drugs or using Bitcoin or even trying to buy illegal activities online, and I'm not really trying to gamble too much online. The average person doesn't do both of these things. And so in my opinion, the answer is probably no. Bitcoin doesn't provide too much value for a person on a day-to-day basis. If you think about it, you don't really use Bitcoin to transact. You don't really use Bitcoin to store your money because it's very volatile. It goes up and down a lot compared to something like gold or even a bond. So in my opinion, it doesn't have too much value for the average person. but that doesn't mean that there's no value. And the second thing to look at is another business 101 lesson is people buy stocks and commodities because of future growth. So if I think something is going to be really huge 5, 10 years from now, I'm actually going to buy it and hold it and wait for it to get to that big place. And that's actually what a lot of people are betting on. They're speculating that Bitcoin will be huge, it will be massive, and it'll actually help people transact or store their money better on the internet. So I personally don't believe this either, because again, going back to the average person, not only does it not provide too much value for the average person, but it's also freaking hard to actually buy and use Bitcoin. So if I tried to explain to my mom what a Bitcoin wallet was, or how to set it up, or even how to use Bitcoin by scanning QR codes and sending something to an address, it's not easy for the average person to use. Most people understand credit cards, most people understand cash, and that works pretty well for them. And so unless Bitcoin is substantially better and substantially easier than a credit card or PayPal or Venmo, I don't really see too many people adopting this, and I don't see too many people buying into the speculation of buying and holding and even using Bitcoin. And the third big thing that I actually think is worth some research from you if you're thinking about investing in Bitcoin is that markets, especially Bitcoin markets, can be easily manipulated because it's not regulated. So if you imagine when you buy a stock from the New York Stock Exchange or from NASDAQ, a lot of these systems are regulated by well-known players and they're regulated by the government. So the SEC says you cannot manipulate stock prices, you cannot do insider trading, you can't throw a bunch of cash and do a pump and dump on some of these stocks. However, with Bitcoin, it's pretty much the Wild West out there, and it's very much unregulated. And there's actually a lot of studies and a lot of articles suggesting that Bitcoin prices could be very much manipulated by big players. So you can imagine if, let's say, Goldman Sachs wanted to just dump $100 billion, which to them, $100 billion is really not that much. They could dump $100 billion, pump and dump the price of Bitcoin, and just leave you, the average investor, holding on to kind of a worthless investment. So that is something that I very much encourage everyone to go research, market manipulation. It hasn't been proven, but there are some suggestions of it. And so at the end of the day, I think Bitcoin and even commodities and stocks are valuable based off of what people are willing to pay and if there's enough demand. And so if people continue to buy and hold and for some reason see value in Bitcoin, maybe even using it for gambling and black market transactions, I definitely think there is some value to Bitcoin, right? And it all depends on how people continuously view it and use it and hold it and spend it. And so my final recommendation here is Bitcoin is just too speculative of an investment without enough underlying value and enough underlying use cases to the average person where I see mass adoption. So I do think it's fun to do some sort of swing trading or even have a little bit of your money in Bitcoin. So sometimes I just buy and sell a few $100s here and there, maybe even up to $1,000. Currently I don't hold any, but I have in the past swing traded Bitcoin. I do think it's fun to buy into the hype. I do think it's fun to swing trade, but like I said, I'm not putting a lot of money in. I don't think it's a solid long-term investment where I could see putting in $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in, or even my life savings. So my recommendation here is don't put a lot of money. Again, there's not a lot of underlying value, in my opinion, to Bitcoin where it's worth $600 billion. There is some value, but I don't think it's worth $600 billion worth of value. And because of market manipulation, I think it's a little bit sketchy and a little bit shady. So right now, I wouldn't put a large sum of money. I would put maybe, a few $100s, a few $1,000s. Definitely don't put your life savings like I'm seeing some people do on the internet. And the other thing is make sure you understand Bitcoin before you do any sort of investing. I see a lot of people saying Bitcoin's gonna get to $100,000 per coin or $1 million per coin, which is huge and sounds really impressive, but you need to understand why. So comment down below if you're a Bitcoin lover and enthusiast. Let me know why you think Bitcoin would get to these huge astronomical prices. What value does it actually bring? How are people going to use this in the future? Because I'm genuinely curious and I'm willing to change my mind if I'm convinced that there is an underlying asset or underlying value or use case that Bitcoin could actually serve. It's just right now, I don't really see it besides gambling and black market transactions. So again, I think it's all speculative, but I'm willing to change my mind if we actually think that there are use cases and underlying value that Bitcoin provides to the average consumer like you or I. And so with that, we wrap up my Bitcoin analysis. Let me know down below, are you going to buy Bitcoin, or maybe are you going to sell Bitcoin after this video? And make sure you subscribe down below for more future updates on Bitcoin, stock analysis, and IPOs. And remember, before you buy any sort of investment or stock or even Bitcoin, make sure you understand this product strategy and why people use it. And most importantly, make sure you make money. Peace.